Hi guys, welcome back to our read aloud of Louisiana's Way Home, written by Kate D. Camillo. Alright, Chapter 9. I waited until Granny was asleep and snoring, and then I went outside. It was late afternoon and everything was quiet. I stood and looked at our car. Granny had the keys under her pillow, and the pillow was, of course, under her head. But I was wily, and I believed that I was wily enough that I could steal the keys and steal the car and drive back to Florida. However, I didn't know what direction Florida was. Well, it was south, of course, but how was I supposed to know which way was south? How could you possibly tell which way south was when there were so many directions in the world? Northeast, southwest? People can point and study maps and say the words south and east and look very knowledgeable when they say them, but directions have always confused me. And there was also the fact that I didn't have any money for gas or food. And then, too, how could I leave Granny alone in a motel room with no teeth and no car? It seemed cruel. I was thinking about all of this when someone whistled and the crow, that same crow, went flying past me in a burst of shiny feathers. He was so close that I could feel the air he pushed aside. I looked up, and lo and behold, what did I see? A boy, standing on the roof of the Good Night Sleep Tight, and the crow was sitting right on the boy's shoulder. "Hey," said the boy. He was barefoot. He had on blue shorts and a white t-shirt, and his hair was cut so close to his head that it was bristly and shone in the light. "Hello," I said back. "You know that vending machine in the office?" "Yes," I said. "I seen you staring at it earlier." So I can get you any old thing you want out of that machine, anything at all. All you got to do is name it." Well, my heart soared up high in my chest at those words. I saw the vending machine as if it were right in front of me. It glowed with all of its special objects. Ballpoint pens, cheese-filled crackers, candy bars, rain bonnets, each one of them giving off its own special light. "My goodness," I said to him. "Anything you want," he smiled. He looked like a pirate, standing up there with a crow on his shoulder. And then Bernice came out of the motel office with a broom in her hand and the curlers still in her hair. "How many times do I have to tell you?" she shouted, waving the broom around. "Get off my roof! Get off it!" Bernice jabbed the broom at the roof. She jumped up and down. "Get out of here," said Bernice. "I mean it." "I'll see you later," said the boy, looking right at me. "Go on, Clarence." The bird, Clarence, took off flying. The boy went running across the roof and grabbed hold of the branch of a big live oak that was next to the Goodnight Sleep Tight, and then he was gone too. "Don't believe a word he says," said Bernice, turning to me. But it was too late. I believed him entirely. I believed everything about him. I couldn't wait to make my selections from the vending machine. And then two things struck me at once. The first was that I knew the bird's name, but I did not know the boy's. The second thing that occurred to me was that I felt hopeful. Yes, for the first time since we had crossed over the Florida-Georgia state line, I, Louisiana Elefante, was filled with hope. All right, Chapter 10. My hopefulness did not last long. It turned out that Granny had paid for only one night at the Goodnight Sleep Tight. And at 11 o'clock the next morning, Bernice was knocking at our door saying, "You will pay now or you will get out. Thank you very much." Her hair was still in curlers. "I am recovering from a traumatic event," said Granny in her new toothless voice. She stood at the door in her nightgown. Her legs were skinny and white. She looked like a troubled ghost. Bernice said, "I have absolutely no interest in hard luck stories. I am interested in you paying for another night, or I am interested in you packing up and leaving. One thing or the other." Granny said, "Very well. I do not have cash, but I do have Louisiana." "What?" said Bernice. "Louisiana," said Granny. "Come here." I went and stood in front of Granny. She put her hands on my shoulders. I could feel her fingers trembling. I had never known Granny to tremble, and her hands were hot. It felt like she was on fire. "She sings," said Granny to Bernice. "So what?" said Bernice. "She sings like an angel," said Granny. I stood there with Granny Granny's trembling, feverish hands on my shoulders, and I felt a wave of darkness and despair roll over me. What would become of us? What would become of me? I thought about the boy on the roof, and the crow named Clarence, and the vending machine stocked full of wondrous things. I thought about Beverly and Rainey. I thought about Archie and Buddy. I missed them. I missed them all. I wanted to go home. But who cared what I wanted? Certainly not Granny. Which is how I ended up at the Good Shepherd Lutheran Church wearing my best dress in preparation for singing to someone named Miss Lulu, who was the church organist and who had made up her mind in advance not to be impressed with me. And that was fine because I was certainly not impressed with her. When Bernice and I arrived, Miss Lulu was playing the organ. She was pounding her way through a song by Bosch, and I felt sorry for Bosch because Miss Lulu's heart was clearly not involved with the music at all. It was very painful to listen to her play. Your heart has to be involved with the music, or else there is no point. That is what Granny has always told me, and I believe it to be true. Also, Miss Lulu was eating a caramel while she played the organ. I could smell it. It is not at all professional to eat a caramel and play the organ at the same time. Miss Lulu made us wait until she had played the Bosch all the way to the end. And then she turned and said, "Good afternoon, Bernice." "Hello, Miss Lulu," said Bernice. "Here we are," although I am not sure exactly why. Bernice had a somewhat confused look on her face. It was because she was dealing with Granny. I had seen the look on the faces of many people. Bernice was wondering just exactly how she had been talked into what she had been talked into. Granny had a strange power over people, even without her teeth. "Tell me the story about this child again," said Miss Lulu, working the caramel around in her mouth. Miss Lulu had curls in her hair. The curls bounced when she talked. Curls, or the hope of them, seemed to be very popular in Richford, Georgia. "Well," said Bernice, she sighed, "she and her grandmother are staying at the motel, and they cannot pay for another night." "Isn't that just terrible?" said Miss Lulu. "Some people," she tossed her head, and the curls bounced up and down, and the smell of caramel wafted through the air. "I do not believe that people should eat candy without sharing it." There was a stained glass window above Miss Lulu's head, and if I squinted at it, I could turn all the colors in the window into a kaleidoscope and also make Miss Lulu's face and curls go fuzzy. So that is what I did, and it was very comforting. In the meantime, Bernice went on talking. "The grandmother says that the girl can sing. She says that I can make money having the girl sing at funerals and weddings. And since you are the one who plays the organ at the weddings and funerals, I thought I would give you a call, and, well, here we are." Miss Lulu looked me up and down. I looked her up and down back. She had on snagged stockings. Her nails were bitten down. So what if she had bouncy curls? "Well," said Miss Lulu, "it doesn't seem probable, does it?" "She looks like something blown in by a storm," Bernice sighed. "I know it, and Lord help me, you should see the grandmother. I feel like I am being hoodwinked, and I am not a fan of being hoodwinked. One time was enough." "Yes, well, Bill was a piece of work, and love makes us do foolish things," says Miss Lulu. "But you did get the motel." Bernice made a huffing noise. Miss Lulu said, "The truth is that there are often requests for someone to sing at a funeral, and since Ida Bell Bleecker passed, there hasn't been anyone with the voice to do it." "Is there a phone that I could borrow, Miss Lulu?" I said, hoping to achieve success by a surprise attack. I had seen the minister's office on the way to the sanctuary. The door was closed, but there was a sign that said, "Minister's Office, Reverend Frank Obertask. Assistance, advice, healing words." I was not particularly interested in receiving assistance, advice, or healing words. But every church office has a phone. I could go into the office of Reverend Obertask and pick up the phone and call Beverly or Rainey and have them come and get me. "What?" said Miss Lulu. "I need to call somebody," I said. "Ignore her," said Bernice. "She's odd." "To me," she said. "We did not come here for you to place phone calls. We came here to see if you can sing." Miss Lulu crashed out a few chords on the organ. And then she said, "We'll perform Just a Closer Walk with Thee." Well, that is a song I know. Miss Lulu started to play, and I opened my mouth and sang. I sang as if my life depended on it, which I guess you could say it did, or at least my room at the Good Night Sleep Tight depended on it. I sang as if the blue fairy from Pinocchio was smiling at me. I sang as if Beverly and Raimy and Archie and Buddy could hear me and would use the song to find their way to me. I sang as if I knew the name of the boy on the roof. I sang as if he knew my name, too. The Georgia sun shone in through the stained glass window. At some point, Miss Lulu stopped playing the organ and just sat with her hands on the keys and looked at me. There was a big splotch of orange on her face from the stained glass and a splotch of green lighting up one of her many curls. All of this was good because it made her look somewhat friendlier. I kept singing. Bernice was crying. Tears were rolling down her face. The world smelled of unshared caramel candy and dust and beeswax. Everything was broken, I knew that, but I felt like I could fix it if I just kept singing, and so I kept singing. It is good to have a talent in this world. When I was finished, there was a long silence. Bernice snuffled. She said, "Bless your heart, I guess you can never say what riches people contain." And then Miss Lulu asked me if I liked angel food cake. I told her that I most certainly did. My goodness, who doesn't like angel food cake? The three of us went down to the social hall, and Miss Lulu gave me a piece of cake on a china plate that had little pink flowers all around its rim. It was a very pretty plate. I sat on a metal folding chair that felt cold against my legs, and I ate the whole piece of cake without bothering to talk in between bites. Miss Lulu and Bernice watched me. "Who taught you to sing?" said Miss Lulu when I'd finished eating. "My granny," I said. "I picked at the angel food crumbs on my fork." Miss Lulu nodded. Her curls bounced up and down. "Do you use curlers, or is that your hair naturally curly?" I asked. Miss Lulu stared at me with her mouth hanging open. It was as if I had asked her to solve the most difficult math problem in the world. I was starting to think that she was not a very bright woman. Miss Lulu turned and looked at Bernice and said, "There is a funeral on Friday. Hazel Elkhorn. I am playing the organ. I am sure that the Elkhorn family would like someone to sing." Bernice nodded slowly. Her face was puffy from crying. "I guess we will start there and see what happens. How much should we charge?" And since I was done with my angel food cake, and since it was almost as if I were invisible to them as they did their planning and cogitating about how to make money from me, I stood up and said, "Excuse me, I will be right back." I went up the stairs and out of the social hall and knocked on the door of Reverend Frank Obertask's office. And when Reverend Obertask did not answer, I opened the door and went inside, and there it was, a phone, sitting on the desk just as I thought it would be. My heart beat very fast. My salvation and rescue were at hand. Chapter 11. In addition to my heart beating fast, my lungs felt very swampy. I bent over and put my hands on my knees and breathed deeply. I looked around the office. It was filled with books. They were piled up on the desk and on the floor. The walls were lined with shelves, and the shelves were jammed tight with books. My goodness, it was a lot of books. Whoever Reverend Frank Obertask was, he certainly believed in the power of the written word. And that was fine by me, because I believe in the power of the written word too. For instance, I believe in these words I am writing, because they are the truth of what happened to me. I considered the power of the written word while I breathed deeply and got my lungs calmed down. And then I stood up straight and stepped over to the desk and picked up the phone. And there was a dial tone. Everything was going exactly right. But there was one small obstacle. The one small obstacle was that I did not know Ramy's phone number, or Beverly's. I did not know their numbers because I had never called them. Granny did not believe in having a phone in the house. She said it was just one more way for the authorities to keep tabs on us. "What do we need a phone for, my darling? The general populace does not need to know our whereabouts, and those who love us can always find us." That is what Granny said. But it's not true, is it? Those who love us can't always find us, can they? Or else I would not be writing these words. There are always and forever obstacles placed in our path. But I had a plan to overcome at least one obstacle. I was going to request operator assistance. I picked up the phone and dialed, and a woman came on the line immediately and said, "Directory assistance, what city, please?" "Lister, Florida," I shouted the words. I felt like I was on an important game show and that I had to answer very quickly and exactly right. Name? Ramey Clark, and there is an E on the end of Clark. There was a long moment of silence. There are 5 listings for Clark. None of them is Ramey. Would you like to try another name? Yes, I shouted. What other name, please? Beverly Topinski. Please spell the last name, said the operator. I spelled it, and then there was a long, sad silence. The operator cleared her throat. She said, I am sorry, dear, but there are no Topinskis in Lister, Florida. Yes, there are, I said. Well, perhaps there are, said the operator, but there are no listings for Topinski. But they exist. Beverly Topinski and Ramey Clark both exist. What do I do now? Regarding what? Said the operator. Regarding me not knowing who to call, I said. This is directory assistance, said the operator. I know that, I said. I stamped my foot. But I don't know what to do. You should assist me and tell me what to do. Honey, said the operator, it will be all fine. And then there was a click and she was gone. I hung up the phone, I bent over and put my hands on my knees and worked to get air into my lungs. I thought, it will not be all fine. I thought, I am alone in the world and I will have to find some way to rescue myself. Alright guys, that was chapters 9 through 11. In the discussion below, this is what I want you guys to think about and discuss. When Louisiana sings at the church for Bernice and Miss Lulu, they're both overcome with emotion. Did you expect them to treat Louisiana differently after that? And then why are people with talents like singing or being good at art sometimes treated differently?